Now we're gonna get started. So today's session is brought to you by the Association of CNPs, which is a professional organization of certified nonprofit professionals. One way this association supports its membership is by hosting sessions on topics that are on the top of minds of nonprofit professionals or very relevant to current underpinnings that are happening in the sector. And this also is extended to other CNP learners as well. And these events are always free for our attendees. And so if you would like to support our educational program and keep them to no cost for attendees, please feel free to donate to the Alliance. And we certainly appreciate your support in all the many ways that you contribute to the sector and your learning. Today's panelists, which is Kristy, Priya, and Jeanette, they have a special treat in store for us, which is really timely considering Halloween is on Friday, right? And so I'll let them introduce themselves as we move along, and then we'll just dive right in. So I'm going to turn it over to Kristy.
Hi, everybody. Before I share my screens, let me introduce myself. My name is Kristy Ryan. I have been in the nonprofit sector for close to 20 years. I am the Chief Operating Officer at a national nonprofit in food insecurity. I have my ACNP. I'm also SHRM-SCP, and my research focus for my dissertation work was in ethics. And with that, this topic is very near and dear to my heart. And let's get started. All right, so I get to talk about ethics and leaderships and your personal ethics in your workplace. Before I dive in, let's do a quick pulse check. Drop an emoji in the chat, raise your hand, drop a comment. Do you see yourself as a leader in your organization is my question for everybody in the room. Now, I love seeing the reactions. If you did not immediately say, yes, I'm a leader, heck yeah, I'm a leader, I'm going to challenge you on your thinking right here, right now. Leadership isn't just about that title or that corner office, it's influence. It's how you show up, how you model behavior, and how you affect the people around you. That means everyone, from the most junior employee to the highest executive, has leadership responsibility. And because of that, everyone has a seat at the table when it comes to ethics. Ethical leadership isn't something reserved for the C-suite. It isn't something we practice once at a time. It's every single day in our choices. It's how we communicate, how we treat each other, how we hold ourselves accountable. And it's the part of our culture you also shape. And it makes you a leader. If you do not claim that leadership title, although that is a totally deeper off-topic conversation, I want you to think about this and ask yourself this question. You do not need to answer it right this minute, but what is one way you lead without a title? Sit with that, marinate with that as we go through this topic and then your every single day. I really want you to consider that important topic. All right, so everybody in the room is probably like, why is she showing us cake? What does cake have to do with ethics? Let me just tell you, Marie Antoinette is famous for being said to have said, let them eat cake, but it was propaganda. What we know is that when you think of leaders, we even picture vision, strategy, results. But the true test of a leader at every level is ethics. Ethics are the invisible guardrails that guide our decisions, shape our culture, and define how people experience our organization. Let's get back to that cake moment. Let them eat cake is often attributed to Marie Antoinette. Whether or not she actually said it, irrelevant. What matters is how it was used as propaganda. The story painted her as so out of touch with her people that she thought that cake was an appropriate substitution for bread. Whether true or not, that narrative shaped the public opinion and ultimately became shorthand for indifference or arrogance in leadership. Why does this matter? Because propaganda, stories, slogans, even unchecked assumptions can create ethical bias. When a message is repeated often enough, it can make unethical behavior seem normal or dismissive leadership seem acceptable. Think of the phrases in your workplace every day that you hear. That's just the way it's done. We can't afford to think about that right now. These are some of our modern day let them eat cake moments. I'm sure you each have a slogan that is said in your team of why something can't be done or why it is done a certain way. That is the let them eat cake moment. They may not sound cruel on the surface, but they can mask inequities, justice inactions, and widen the gap between leaders and the people that they serve. Ethical leadership requires us to cut through that noise, to challenge the easy narrative and ask, are we leading in a way that honors people, not just performance? Are we aware of how our words and decisions ripple out beyond our intent? You know, perception and perspective are two things that often show up when you're thinking, is it an ethical choice? Today, we're going to explore transparency, fairness, accountability, and courage. And I want you to keep that image in mind. Leadership isn't just about what you decide. It is about how your decisions are perceived, how they align with your stated values, and whether they close the gap between policy and practice or widen it. So the hard thing about ethics is doing the right thing and doing the easy thing are rarely the same thing. They're rarely in alignment. It's easy to cut corners to meet deadlines. It's easy to look the other way when misconduct happens, especially if it's a high performer. Think of that person who just always seems to get by with doing things that other people are like, man, if that was me, I'd probably get canned. It's easy to justify silence because speaking up might feel uncomfortable or even risky. But the truth is, ethical organizations don't just happen. They don't appear fully formed because we put words like integrity and respect on a wall. We don't shout that we're ethical and suddenly we're doing it. They're built through daily choices, transparent systems, and courageous conversations. And once they're built, they're challenged. This is the thing to hang your hat on. Ethics are not something you write on a wall and walk away from and say, that's our ethical policy. You should challenge them. Are we living them? We should, when things like pressure to hit your numbers, you have competing interests, and the people who are there may not be fully living up to what you think they are. That is a time where you're checking your ethics and your values, and they move on beyond a slogan. Let's name a few of the common unethical behaviors that creep in if you're not vigilant. Feel free to add some more, but I'm going to put a few of them. Favoritism and bias. Rewarding those who look or act like us, while overlooking others with equal or greater contributions, right? Oftentimes people tend to go towards the people that look and sound and have a background like they are. And it's a bias that we show up with. You can acknowledge it and perform ethically, or you can ignore it and become unethical. Withholding information. Keeping people in the dark to maintain control or avoiding accountability. Anybody ever have that manager who only gives you a snippet of information and then you should have known? Why didn't you do that? Like I told you. Cutting corners, ignoring safety, ignoring fairness, ignoring compliance. I just challenged Keely when we started this call. Hey, what about two-party consent when you're talking about AI transcriptions? That's a compliance thing that makes us ethical. It can also, make sure that we're saving ourselves and our organizations. Toxic silence, failing to address harassment, disrespect, misconduct, because it's just easier to simply go with the flow and stay quiet. Misuse of power. I'm sure we've all seen a leader who leverages their role for personal gain instead of the organization's mission. I think everybody can name at least one person who has ever done this at every level. Each of these behaviors chips away at trust, and trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. So here's the takeaway. Ethics require intention. They require us to build systems that make the right thing the experienced thing, and that have the courage to stand up to the systems when it's easier to look away. An ethical organization isn't one that never faces challenges. It's the one that consistently chooses integrity over convenience. Ethical leadership isn't about perfection. It is about consistency and accountability. Leaders who embody ethics don't ask, what will this achieve? They also ask, is this the right thing to do? And is it in the right way? There are keys to ethics. Ethics aren't just for executives. Every employee has a role in building what ethical culture looks like. If you've ever faced a gray area, drop in the Slack that you faced a gray area when it comes to ethics. I'm just curious how many people have faced a challenge where you're not quite sure what way to go. This will help inform some of the later conversations with Jeanette and Priya. All right. So let's connect ethical leadership to people management for a moment and HR best practices for managers. There's 4 real essentials in ethical leadership of people. It's transparency, communication, fairness and opportunity, accountability and behavior, and courage and decision making. I'm not going to go into all of these in high level, or in deep level, I'm going to go over high level. For transparency and communication, it's being open about the decisions. It is not doing things behind the closed door, which is easy. It's very easy for leaders to sit in a room and make the decisions and then just say, that's what we decided. It is actually sharing everything, even the ugly truths. At my organization, we firmly believe in, hey, we're not meeting goal, and here's what that means as an organization. Hey, these are the things that we tried that did not work. How are we going to move past it? You have to be very authentic when you're showing up. Fairness and opportunity. Structured interview guides is one of my favorite ways to ensure that you're having fairness. Documented performance reviews. If you're not measuring people for the right things at the right time and telling them where they stand, you're doing it all behind closed doors and having this moving litmus test that they may never know, am I actually achieving anything? Accountability, so addressing misconduct, even when it's uncomfortable. Some of the hardest conversations, as any leader will tell you, are the ones where you have to give somebody that critical feedback when they're not doing the right thing. Those are the hardest moments. They're the hardest moments to walk away from. They're the hardest moments for employees to walk back to. They stand, but they give you the opportunity to say, I will not stand silently. I'm going to address this head on in an ethical and fair, equitable way. Courage in your decision making. I mentioned it. Leaders often face hard choices. I was recently on a podcast and I talked about this very topic. It is very important for leaders to find that balance between who your friends are at work and when you have a professional working relationship. Why? Because if you're friends with everybody at work as a leader, when you have to make those hard choices, it is very easy to blur the ethical lines. So finding a balance and keeping some separation is really important for true leaders to be able to treat everybody ethically, because you don't want somebody to think, oh, well, that person's her favorite, so she's always going to give them the opportunity. You want to give everybody the opportunity and remove that favoritism. Transparency, fairness, accountability, and courage together. It's not just HR best practices. It's the foundation of ethical leadership. And that's how we ensure that people know what we say, that we're going to live up to our values and do and show up the right ways. This was a little bit blurry. Sorry about that. So how do you measure whether ethics align in your organization? There's 3 parts. Policy versus practice. Do your leaders actually live up to the values printed on the wall? Do you have a mission statement and a value statement and a vision statement? Is your organization marching with everything in mind to those? We hear oftentimes mission creep. There's ethics and value creep as well. So that's really important. It's easy to write them down. Every organization has them. Words like integrity, respect, representation, innovation. But the real question is whether those values show up in your day-to-day. For example, a company might have a work-life balance policy written on the wall, but if the leaders send out an email at midnight and expect immediate responses, the practice contradicts that promise. As leaders, our responsibility is to consistently check. And as people who feel they may or may not be in a leadership role, your job is to equally challenge your leaders to make sure that they are doing that check. Decision making, although tough calls made with only $1 in mind, or do they actually consider people and impact? When we're thinking it, like, do we have the right people in the right seats? Do you have to downsize? Do we grow? Do we promote? Do we demote? All of those things should not be done with just $1 in mind. That's not actually being ethical and being stewards of your team, which is your finite, most important resource as an organization. Budgets matter. Without financial health, there is no mission. But the dollars are the only factor in decision making, then you're missing out on ethics. Accountability in behavior. So addressing that misconduct ties right back into that personal check-in. right? At the end of the day, can you say, I am proud of the way I contributed today? That is your ethical test for you as an individual and as a leader. If you can go and say, I treated people respectfully, fairly, equitably, I lived the vision and mission, my personal values align still with that mission and that organization, whether you're an executive, a manager, team member, you have to pause and ask, did I lead in a way that I can be proud of? Was I honest, fair, and respectful? And did I listen when somebody spoke up? Did I treat people as ends, not just means to the outcome? That personal check is simple, but it's very powerful. It builds self-awareness and creates alignment between personal integrity and organization values. When individuals take pride in their daily contributions, it strengthens the culture and it strengthens your organization. But what about personal ethics? Yeah, this is one of my favorite. I often ask people, and I did this with my own daughter when she was trying to decide between organizations for her first job. And I said, at the end of the day, which company would make you feel better? If everything else was equal, pay wasn't a consideration, they gave the same benefits and everything was equal, at the end of the day, which would you feel the best at doing? That is guiding some of your decisions. It's how we show up. You have to know your non-negotiables. Decide your personal lines that you're not willing to cross. Honesty, respect, fairness, clarity up front to make those tough calls easier. When you're new in the workforce, this is really true. Organizations seem to set all the rules. The truth is, you bring your own set of values into every job that you take. Think of them as your non-negotiables. For some, that's honesty. I won't falsify numbers no matter what. I don't care if it makes me look better. I don't care if our sales team needs to have that top report. I'm going to do what is right. For others, it's respect. I won't tolerate treating colleagues as anything less. By defining those lines now, before you're pressured in the moment, you're ready to make the tough calls. Align and question. Compare your values with your organization. If there are gaps, don't panic, but be aware of them and determine how you should respond. No organization is perfect. My organization is not perfect. You make quick notice of places where it's printed on the wall but doesn't fully match. It doesn't always mean that you should run for the door, right, when there's a misalignment, but it does mean you should pay attention. You should ask questions and you should always check in with yourself. Do my values align with the organization's direction? If there are gaps, or even if they're small, you may be able to influence change over time. If there are gaps, but they're wide, say your company celebrates integrity, but consistently rewards cutting corners, you might have to make the hard choice that is no longer an organization for you. Seek mentorship and feedback. If you did not know, CNP Central has a mentorship platform. I encourage everybody at every level to seek out a mentor, and NLA makes it so easy. So please ask any of us on the executive committee, but take a look at it, sign up to get a mentor, use them as your sounding board when you're facing these ethical questions. And let's take a moment to just be real. I invite you to write down one personal non-negotiable, something that if you want to be true as a professional conduct, no matter where you work. It can be, I will give credit where credit is due. I will never stay silent in the face of harassment. Whatever it is, that is your anchor. Keep it somewhere where you can see it again and again. Because when the pressure comes, and it will come, remember what you hold and what is grounding you in your day. My closing thought, ethical leadership is about courage. The courage to communicate clearly, the courage to treat people fairly, the courage to speak up when something isn't right. Whether you're leading a team or just starting your career, your ethics are your compass. The stronger your compass, the better you'll navigate, and not just work, but life. So I stop sharing. All right. Yes, my kitty lion photo is my absolute favorite. While we're in transition, I'm going to open the floor if there's any top pressing question we want to talk about right this second. I don't know where the questions are.
Don't have any. I'm not showing any at the moment.
Oh, you want me to repeat my courage statement? Ethical leadership is about courage, the courage to communicate clearly, the courage to treat people fairly, the courage to speak up when something isn't right. Whether you're leading a team or just starting your career, your ethics are your compass. The stronger your compass, the better you'll navigate not just work, but life.
I do have one question before we move to our next panelist. How do you balance ethics with culture shifts?
I think it goes down to understanding what the ethics of your organization are and what your personal ethics are, right? Organizations are living, breathing. They should evolve. They should change. New people, new policies, all should be coming in. But they should always be litmus to what do we stand for? And do these things align? And when they don't, having the really authentic, hard conversations.
I love it. Well, thank you, Kristy. We will circle back around at the end of the session for more questions and give you some time. Priya's next. I think Priya's up next.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Okay, thank you. Everybody, welcome to the second part of this session. In this segment, we are diving into how nonprofits can build real trust and maximize impact by raising the bar on research and data ethics. I'm Priya Balachandran, one of the executive committee members of the Association of CNPs. I work for Northern Illinois Food Bank, where I manage all aspects of prospect development. Our food bank, which is an innovative data-driven organization, ensures the neighbors in 13 countries across the Chicago suburbs have access to the food and resources they need to thrive. Beyond my role at the food bank, I also serve as a board member for APRO Illinois chapter, faculty on the APRO International Fundamentals Committee, and I also co-chair Feeding America's Prospect Research Committee and AFP Chicago's Continuous Learning Council. Okay, here's a quick overview of today's agenda. Okay, let's dive into the topic. Research and data activities in nonprofit sector have grown significantly in recent years. US nonprofits spend over an estimated of $30 billion on research and development in fiscal year 2023. That's a 10% increase from the previous year, according to the NCSES, as you can see from the graph here. We live in a data-driven world where everyone is both a data creator and a data user, whether you identify as a researcher or not. Given that data influences nearly every decision we must ask, are we empowering people or exploiting them? Can a nonprofit truly serve its community without a clear ethical compass? What does ethics really have to do with nonprofit data, right? Some joke, we don't have a data problem, we have a data storytelling problem. What they mean is, it is not just the numbers, it's how we spin the story. Without ethics, the storytelling quickly becomes a mere spin, like turning a modest fundraiser into a sold-out rock concert, right? But beware, stretch the too far, and your nonprofit risks becoming the creative fictional society where impact reports read more like a best-selling novels than a real data. No nonprofit wants its story to start with something like once upon a time. Instead of here is the evidence. Ethical storytelling is more than honesty. It's about keeping data trustworthy, stories believable, and staying out of trouble. Ethical considerations are central to mission-driven impact. Ethics fundamentally differentiates nonprofits from for-profits, right? According to the 2025 Independent Sector Trust in Nonprofits and Philanthropic Report, 57% of US citizens express high trust in nonprofit organizations. This trust surpasses that in other sectors such as small businesses, philanthropy, government, and media. However, the trust is earned through consistent ethical actions, not assumed. Diana Henrique, a recognized expert in ethical nonprofit storytelling, highlighted this in one of her podcasts. In nonprofit work, ethical storytelling is about protecting dignity, preserving trust, and honoring the communities we serve through transparent and respectful research and data stewardship. Uh, Ethics are not simply a compliance requirement, they are the cornerstone of lasting social change. Let's explore the intersection of ethics and research. How it can drive meaningful and impactful initiatives. At the heart of this approach is the commitment of fairness, treating every volunteer, donor, fundraiser, board member, and community member equitably throughout the research process. This includes revisiting and redefining our research criteria regularly to ensure that we are truly inclusive, reflecting the communities we serve. Collect data deliberately to authentically reflect diverse stakeholder perspectives. Data integrity and transparency are fundamental. We should design our research and data management systems to maintain accurate, reliable, and verifiable data. In prospect research and fundraising, ethical considerations apply strongly. The data insights we gain inform sustainable fundraising practices. When data is handled properly, fundraisers can um, build a lasting relationships grounded in mutual respect and trust. Another example is ethical prospecting for diverse board candidates, which strengthens inclusive leadership, more representative decision making, and achieving stronger impacts. However, these efforts need ethical handling and usage of DEA data. For example, when researching leaders with disabilities, we need to avoid assumptions about if anyone's identity or status. Use only publicly available or voluntarily self-closed info. Respect respect privacy by focusing on candidates affiliated with advocacy or representative organizations. Ensure transparency throughout the identification process. Prevent tokenism by selecting leaders based on qualification, not simply demographics. Protect confidentiality by securing sensitive data and limiting access. By adhering to these ethical guardrails, nonprofits can successfully identify qualified diverse leaders, promoting equity while safeguarding privacy. And also, it's best practice to observe ethical boundaries in how research data and stories are shared and communicated, whether in annual reports, newsletters, or other publications. This means when crafting and sharing stories that are grounded in actual data and evidence, use language and imagery intentionally to honor the dignity of every stakeholder, creating an environment where everyone feels seen and valued. We should proactively engage in training to increase our awareness of unconscious bias, cultural competency, structural inequity, and allyship. These experiences help us integrate ethical, research-based, community-centric, and strength-based language across all internal and external communications, consciously avoiding stereotypes and respecting the lived experiences of individuals. It is not uncommon to see individuals misrepresented or oversimplified in stories, which underscores why ethical language is so important. It helps prevent both intentional and unintentional harm. A useful reflection is to ask ourselves, how would we want to be described and represented? How would we want our identity recognized and honored? Ethical communication means portraying our stakeholders authentically and using their preferred language. We must avoid making assumptions, for example, about someone's ethnicity based on their last name or gender based on their first name. Steering clear of these stereotypes or assumptions are essential ethical responsibility in research-backed storytelling. In nonprofit research and data management, ethical challenges are everywhere and they are getting more complex. On top of navigating strict regulations like the GDPR, that is General Data Protection Regulation, and CCPA, that is California Consumer Privacy Act, nonprofits face challenges unique to their mission-driven, resource-limited environment. Understanding and complying with these laws is essential. For example, GDPR requires transparency on how personal data is collected, stored, and used, and gives individuals deletion. While CCPA exempts many nonprofits. Some may still be some may still need to comply depending on their structure or affiliations. Knowing the rules builds a strong foundation for ethical data handling. But legal compliance is just a start. Nonprofits often handle highly sensitive info, which raises privacy concerns and risk damaging stakeholders' trust if mishandled. Some individuals may hesitate to share the personal details out of fear that their data might be misused, which limits our ability to understand intersectional identities and serve diverse communities effectively. There are also systemic issues with the data itself. Historical under-collection of data on marginalized groups skews many CRM systems cannot capture nuanced identities, focusing oversimplifications or leaving gaps. Smaller teams may lack the budget or expertise to fully address these challenges. So, how can nonprofits overcome these hurdles? Ethical data practices start with clear mission-focused data collection. Prioritize transparency. Tell people why you're collecting the data and how it can be used. Always obtain explicit consent as needed. Use anonymized data to track transfer where possible. Be cautious with public data as well. For example, although the Federal Election Commission FEC data is public, using it for solicitation is not ethical. Similarly, leaked or hacked data, even if publicly available, is off limits. Breaches can harm an organization's reputation and financial standing, so strong protections and quick instant responses are essential. As nonprofits increasingly adopt technology like AI to enhance research, we face new ethical challenges. One of the most pressing issues is bias. AI systems learn from existing data, which often reflects historical inequities and dominant demographic patterns. This means, for example, prospects with strong may be undervalued. Individuals from marginalized communities with less standard wealth indicators overlooked, or women potentially rated lower due to the outdated stereotypes embedded in the data. Only on AI-driven scores and flawed models risk missing qualitative community-based insights. The ethical way forward is to develop a blended research approach and multifactorial lens to help reveal a fuller picture. Figures should be cross-checked local news, nonprofit records, and other contextual info. So how do we ensure data ethics across our data structure? It starts with the data collection. Follow data minimalization to prevent the collection or storage of unnecessary personal details. This helps with the data cleanliness. For example, when collecting program participants' data, we ask, do we truly need this piece of info to fulfill our mission? One of the most ethical ways to gather sensitive information is through surveys that clearly explain why the data is being collected and how it will be used. This helps participants understand the purpose behind each question and builds that trust in the process. Create a safe, respectful environment that supports open and honest feedback, ensuring ethical data practices. Next comes data use. Data collected on behalf of the organization belongs to the organization and must be solely for the intended purposes, not unrelated or personal use. For example, donor data is confidential intellectual property of the philanthropy team and shouldn't be shared outside that group. When handled ethically, these data and insights help more thoughtful engagement and fundraising strategies and moves the organization away from one-size-fits-all communication and toward personalized, meaningful connections. Finally, data storage and access. Our databases, CRM systems, and shared drives hold extensive and often sensitive info, such as DA-related details, for instance. Access should be restricted strictly to those who need it to perform their job functions. Collaborate with your database manager and the IT team to maintain strong access controls and permissions that protect such data. To summarize, research and data ethics and ethics in general can feel overwhelming in today's dynamic nonprofit environment. But we don't have to be experts or have all answers. As Kristy mentioned, stay open to the ethics resources. As you can see, I have referred to these resources and others for this presentation, as well as throughout my journey of ethical approaches. Start with simple, clear research and data policies that everyone understands. Complex data rules that nobody follows do more harm than good. Ethics does not need a thick policy binder. Model it in daily behavior. Data ethics is less about enforcement and more about collective commitment. Encourage teams to ask why and reflect on the impact of the data-driven decisions. Acknowledge that dilemmas will happen. AI bias, data misuse are fairness issues. Talk about them openly and build policies that reflect inclusion and transparency. Data transparency must be balanced with privacy. Be clear about how decisions are made and why certain data must be protected. Review access controls regularly and keep permissions current. Leaders should promote a culture where data protection is seen as essential to serving the mission, not as a distraction. Leaders set the tone. When staff see ethics modeled through integrity and honesty, it builds long-term trust. Recognize and celebrate ethical courage, and it strengthens your culture. With that, we have reached the end of this segment. Please feel free to reach out any questions now or at the end of the session. So, do we see any questions, Beverly?
Thanks, Priya. No, I'm not seeing, well, I'm only looking at the Q&A and not the chat. So,
Okay.
but not at the moment. I mean, actually I had one, hold on. I have one over here that asks, this one asks, in a small resource-strapped nonprofit where staff is already overworked and often just managing to meet essential demands, is it really practical or even possible to prioritize ethical practices? Or, how can they justify investing time and attention in ethics when it feels like a luxury they can't afford?
Yeah. When resources and time are tight, ethics seem like something extra, but in reality, it's the backbone of what keeps our mission trustworthy and our work sustainable. Ethics doesn't always mean adding big new processes or meetings. It can be as simple as being transparent in communications, handling donor money carefully, or treating each other with respect, even under pressure. These small, consistent actions actually save time down the road by building trust and preventing bigger problems. So rather than seeing ethics as a luxury, I will say think of it as part of how you do the ethical essential work, because it protects your credibility, your team culture, and ultimately your ability to serve your community.
Thanks for that, Priya. All right, we're gonna turn it over to Jeanette.
Let me stop sharing. Okay, I think I stopped sharing.
Yeah. And as a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A part of the platform, and then we will circle back to them.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to try and get through this quickly so we still have some time for questions at the end. I'm Jeanette Gass, and I'm the president of the Association of CNPs. I hold the ACNP as well as the CAE, which is the Certified Association Executive, and the CAP, which is the Certified Administrative Professional credentials. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me about that as well. In my day job, I'm the Senior Program Manager for Strategic Relationships at the International City County Management Association, where I help to build bridges between organizations of local government professionals around the world. I also serve on a number of volunteer committees and boards where ethical leadership is extremely important. You heard my colleagues talk about the importance of ethics in nonprofit leadership and in data management, but what does ethics mean for you as a staff member, volunteer, board member, or any other role that you have in the nonprofit space? Today, I'll give you a brief overview about codes of ethics and codes of conduct and the importance of transparency and ethical behaviors. So here's just a little bit of what I'll go over today. And I will skip right to the content, not spend too much time on this. So before we dive in, I wanted to quickly talk about the difference between legal and ethical responsibilities. Sometimes these things get confused, so I wanted to make that clear for all of you that maybe aren't as familiar with these topics as some of us are in the chat. So legal responsibilities are the ones tied to the law. So that could be federal, state, or local laws that are dealing with nonprofit administration. Legal responsibilities are also sometimes seen as compliance. So it's what you have to do to continue operating. Ethical responsibilities go beyond the law and are developed by organizations to ensure that the organization is abiding by its values and working with integrity in order to best serve the community. Something like a conflict of interest form for board members would be going beyond legal compliance and demonstrating ethical governance. So codes of ethics, a lot of organizations have these, and they define the values and principles of the organization, and they reflect the organizational mission and culture. So some elements of a strong code of ethics include honesty and integrity, respect, inclusion and equity, confidentiality, transparency and accountability, and stewardship of resources. All of the elements of a good code of ethics should align with the organization's mission and vision and the community's goals. So how would you develop a code of ethics? So a lot of organizations already have them, but in case your organization doesn't, or you're looking to review it, here's some good principles you can think about for developing your code of ethics. So first off, ensure there's community support for all the policies. It's really important to include different stakeholders in the creation of the policies or in any updates that might be made to existing policies. As you all know, people are more likely to follow policies and procedures that they help create. So, keeping people involved in the process makes things easier when you're trying to educate everyone. So in addition, you want to make sure that everyone understands the policies that exist, which means you'll need to do a lot of education, and not just for staff members, also for board members and anyone else that's impacted by the policies. So this also means a lot of re-education. I don't know how many of you work with boards, but board members don't stay on boards forever. So you'll need to continually talk to people about how the code of ethics works and what their role is in maintaining the organizational standards. So let's take a quick look. So the Association of CNPs has a code of ethics. The three main areas of this are to demonstrate personal and professional integrity, build public trust through transparency and accountability, and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the CNP's code of ethics actually applies to anyone who has the CNP designation. So for all of you out there, you're supposed to follow this code of ethics once you get your CNP and you're using it. So I think it's really important to kind of know what it is and know how it's developed, and to know that it's there and something that you can look at online and really dive into if you're really interested. But these three principles align with the goals of the CNP and also the mission and vision of the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance. So this code also outlines the policies for ethics, complaints, and reviews, which is also an important part of code of ethics. When you have something out there, you want to make sure that people can know when things are going wrong and that there's a process in place for investigating those complaints. So you can see the whole policy online by visiting the link at the bottom of this slide and then clicking on the Code of Ethics section. So a code of conduct. So some of you might be thinking, oh, we have a code of ethics and we have a code of conduct, and what's the difference? So the code of conduct defines expected behaviors and rules, and it is the operationalization of the code of ethics. So it helps you provide guidance for your daily actions. So you can think of it this way, ethics is what we believe and conduct is how we behave. So some common topics in codes of conduct include conflict of interest, harassment and discrimination, use of organizational resources, confidentiality and data protection, social media and public communications. Codes of conduct reflect real-world risks nonprofits face in their daily operations. So now that you have all these policies and procedures in place, how do you ensure it's working as it's supposed to? So ethical leadership starts from the top, which for many organizations means that it starts with the board. Many of you have probably heard this before, but it's always important to keep in mind that policies and procedures are also meant to help guide the board and the organization's leadership. So there's 3 pillars of ethical board governance, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But in the case that some of you are not, the duty of care means to make informed, intelligent decisions. Duty of loyalty includes avoiding conflicts of interest. And the duty of obedience means to uphold the mission and the law. So these are just 3 main sections that kind of go with ethical board governance. And so I think we heard a little bit of Kristy talk a little bit about this. So some common ethical challenges when things maybe don't go your way are listed here. And if anyone has some issues they'd like to share in the chat that they've seen and how they have or haven't been resolved, we can talk about those and see if anyone can help you provide any feedback or tips. So to avoid ethical issues, you want to make sure you have things like annual conflict of interest disclosures, regular board training on ethics, independent audits and evaluations, and a culture of open discussion. Most importantly, it's really important to encourage boards to normalize conversations about ethics before the crises occur. That way plans can be put in place and everybody will be on the same page when something does happen. So to talk about daily practice, how do you keep ethics in your daily life? So include ethics in your orientation and policies, review your codes on a regular basis, encourage reporting and learning from your mistakes, and recognize ethical leadership. So when people are doing the right thing, it's important to also showcase that so that they can, other folks can see good examples of ethical leadership. Lastly, I want to get to some key takeaways before I open it up to questions from everyone. So as we wrap up, I hope you learned something about ethics today from all 3 of us, and how policies can help ensure that ethics are embedded into the work of your organization. At my job, ICMA, we take this ethics extremely seriously, and all of our members actually have to sign a commitment to the Code of Ethics when they sign up for membership, so it goes beyond our staff and beyond our board. Our ethics team always likes to say, ethics is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. So just thinking about how you can keep doing the right thing and keep to the truth and your ethical framework are super important for maintaining ethical standards. Now I'll stop sharing so I'll open up to questions, and if anyone has any questions for the 3 of us, just let us know in the chat.
Thank you, Jeanette. I do have one question. I think this is for Kristy. I think it's a good opportunity to share how organizations can start on the right foot in building an ethical leadership foundation for ethical leadership. So the question is, how do you help a startup organization discover its values?
Yeah, and I dropped a little bit of a response in the chat on this. I'm happy to expand upon it. For me, whenever I've worked with a lot of nonprofit startups and startups in general, I always start with understanding what your mission and your vision is, right? From there, you can track back into what are we trying to do? If it's not about the dollars, which hopefully for no nonprofit is about the dollars, but if it's not about the dollars, then what is the intent of it, right? So I'm going to use my organization as an example just to frame it out. Nonprofit focused in food insecurity, we are mobilizing industries. Our mission is to mobilize the industries. Why we are doing it is to bring food access into communities that are currently struggling, right? So we're supporting food banks and food pantries. My values that align with that then are turning everyday people into heroes. That's one thing that we value as an organization. It is providing equitable access of culturally appropriate food items, right? So that's a value that we have set as an organization. I can say those 2 things because I can funnel them back up to my mission and my vision statement for my organization. If your values cannot funnel back up, you have to question, are they in service of the organization or are they your personal beliefs? There's no wrong thing with a personal belief, but you have to determine, are you speaking on behalf of a large body of the work that your organization is going to do, or who you represent as an individual, because they are 2 distinct things. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Kristy. This one I think is for Priya. When it comes to data protection, I'm wondering if there is a sort of template and guide that nonprofits can follow, particularly nonprofits that have a strong volunteer base and where a lot of kind of that operational stuff is done by volunteers. And if there's just, you know, a way to make it an easy guideline, you know, for that type of work.
For this, actually, it's very organization based, right? The context differs for organization to organization. So most organizations have a policy for this. If you don't have one, lot of organizations like AFP or even CNP and APRA for prospect research, those kind of associations have the ethics policy designed for the respective fields, so we can access those resources. That's a go-to for if I'm referring to, you know, if I'm something like for prospect research, I would go to APRA. If it's general nonprofit based, I would go to CNP resources, and if something related to specific to fundraising, then I would refer to AFP. So those are the resources available to us to refer to.
That's good information to know that, like, sometimes it really matters what space you're located in the sector. Thank you, Priya. And this I think could be for any of you. What is the best way to align values with ethics, codes of conduct, and policies for staff? Oh, Keely, you might have to ask that.
I saw it in the chat. Beverly, it's fine. I can take it because I think it has to do with my presentation.
Okay.
So to me, when you're thinking about a code of conduct or a code of ethics, it's really, really important that those policies, like any other policies your organization has, should align with your mission and vision first. So if your mission and vision also have the information in it that talk about the organization's values, then those codes of ethics and codes of conduct should also include that same sort of structure or framework. I know some organizations also have value statements. I know ICMA has something like that. And if that's another thing that your organization has, that would also be something to consider. So a lot of these things are foundational documents to your organization. And so if you are developing your policies further, you want to go back and look at those organizational foundational documents first. And I think maybe Kristy or Priya, if you have anything else to add to that, you can feel free to also chime in.
Yeah, I was going to say, with compliance and some of the other aspects that you're thinking of when you're thinking of code of conducts and ethics in that, you can also lean on resources through Society of Human Resources. There's several other human resource organizations that put together great content that can help you at least get a foundation template. And I'm going to say the thing that everybody is questioning right now, AI is your friend. AI will help you with some of this. We personally use a privatized AI tool at our organization. If you do not have the means to pay for something that is privatized to your organization, then use ChatGPT. You can filter in what you're going to put into it, so it's not all going public facing, but ask it to give you some samples of what a code of ethics might look like, a code of conduct might look like, and it will pump back, and then you tailor it based on your own organization's needs, visions, and values.
Thank you, Kristy. Are there any other questions? We got like another minute, perhaps. I think that Jeanette, Priya, and Kristy provided some really good resources. And so I'm hoping that maybe we can include some of the links to those resources when we send out the recording afterwards. I think that would be a great addition to this session. I want, without any further questions, can we give some emoji love to our panelists? Because I just like watching them float all over my screen. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Really do appreciate their expertise. It was a lot of information to try to pack into an hour, and like this could be an entire day-long week-long workshop for sure. And I certainly appreciate the information. For me, a lot of it was good reminders of things that we're looking at internally right now. So whether you're seasoned or brand new, it was certainly worth being here. And I thank everyone for attending and choosing to spend your time with us. I think at one point we had almost 125 people logged in. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And before you go, we're going to drop a link. Just if you take a couple minutes to just give some quick feedback about this session, and be on the lookout for upcoming sessions in the next few months and into the new year.
Go into the portal and find a mentor. I'm going to put a plug in there again. Please find a mentor or be a mentor. Like, we're going to plug it all day long.
Absolutely. Yes. If you are already a CNP, using CNP Central is a fantastic tool and resource for many different things. And it's definitely worth keeping it bookmarked in your browser. All right. I want to thank everyone again, to our panelists, to our attendees, and we hope to see you all again soon.